What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Wolfcrier here, joined by my friend Aetrik, and welcome to another episode of AARPG Vodcast. Tonight, we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff, as a lot of games this week got updates and patches, and it's been a crazy week for games that we personally love. Wolcen, Lords of Mayhem, got a very big update with their new chronicle added to the game. Bunch of stuff going on there. Last Epoch announced their latest patch and released their latest patch today on December 4th. That includes the new Rogue class finally in the game. Path of Exile started its new Mayhem League, and Dauntless has released new content and updated the game as well. And Dauntless is a game that I personally have played, but Aetrik has more experience in Dauntless, and he's going to be talking a lot about that. I'm going to be asking questions, because I wasn't a big fan of it when I played, and I'd like to know if that type of stuff has changed. But we're going to go ahead and start today's discussion on Wolcen, Lords of Mayhem, and whether the new chronicle that was added to the game is going to be enough to save that game and maybe propel it into, not being the total failure that it was from its launch, which was highly successful in terms of financially, but overall burned a lot of the player base when it came to the game itself. Balance, there was none. There was maybe two builds that were capable of, being the meta in that game, and it was foolish to play other builds. And the content was rather limited, even though the end game system was decent. And the amount of bugs in the game were just mind-boggling, and the amount of things that didn't work correctly and the problems that they had during their launch was absolutely crazy. And I'm just wondering if this is going to be enough to save the game, bring back some of the player base, and not alienate its current player base. On that note, Aetrik, what are your thoughts on the latest update to Wolcen, Lords of Mayhem?
Well, I haven't played it yet, but I am going to be getting into it this weekend. It's tough to decide what to do at any given time because there's so much going on this weekend, so much new stuff. I think it will help. It's definitely going to bring people back at least for the weekend or maybe a week or so. It's really going to depend on how many bugs are still in it and whether or not that new content is something that people are going to like. I do know, I have been watching some streams and talking to some people that a big issue that a lot of people are having right now is the fact that they separated it and you have to play through the campaign again, which is understandable because they had to reset the economy somehow. But a lot of people are a little bit upset about having to do that because, in most AARPGs or ARPGs, you kind of want to do the end game. That's basically where it is. So you don't want to be stuck doing the campaign. But
especially if you've already done the campaign, which I personally have as well. I'm currently in Act 2, and this is where, for me personally, and this is with every game, even Path of Exile, every new season or every new character that I make, it just hurts to do the campaign when you've done it already. You know the story, you know what's coming up. All you're doing is speed clicking through all the conversation. And I like the fact that in Wolcen, for your second and third character, you don't have to do the campaign. But because they had to do this hard reset, where all previous characters are now legacy characters, able to play with just each other, I think, but cannot play with any of the newly created characters, it's rough going through the campaign. I'm enjoying it. Wolcen is a pretty game. I've always thought that it had the best graphics out there for these action role-playing games. but it sucks to have to do the campaign again. And I want to get to endgame and see how things are going. But I've already started to run into the bugs again with this. I've personally reached the point where I've gotten the sound bug several times where all the sound in the game, except for a couple sounds here and there, cut out completely. There's no music, there's no sound to your weapon firing. Sometimes you get some of the dialogue, but that's pretty much it. And the sound bug is a big thing that people are complaining about. There's other bugs, I think, that have come out because of the new hunt mechanic that was added. When you're doing the end game content, when you engage with the hunt, it's causing the portal at the end to sometimes not spawn, so you can't continue your progression through the end game. So that's been a problem. There have been other bugs as well that have been popping up on the forums and in their Discord and stuff, and I don't think it's as bad as the previous launch, but it's definitely got some issues that hopefully will be fixed in the next week or so. It's not a bad launch, but I don't know if there's enough to overcome its previous problems.
Yeah. Now, one thing I will say that I think is a massive positive that could help people come back to the game if they're watching streamers to make a decision is I've not seen a single person running Bleeding Edge yet. And Bleeding Edge was so overpowered consistently that if you weren't really running Bleeding Edge before, you were one of those fools not running meta. And hey, I was one of those guys. I had some weird little teleport around poison explosion thing happening. It was fun as crap to play, but I wasn't doing expeditions above like a 100. And another thing that I've noticed watching some streams is I've seen some streamers that have been streaming like today, early this morning even, 187 expeditions. Now, so that's telling me one of two things is happening. Either the people that have been playing are just playing on the legacy thing and staying in in-game and not going to the new servers, which means they're not going to interact with the new people at all, or they were able to buzz through so quick to get to in-game that, you know, within half a day, they're already doing 187 plus. If you're doing like the highest tier expeditions that you can in half a day, then something needs to be adjusted with loot drops. Being able to get that powerful that quick. So I'm hoping that those streams, they were just playing in the legacy. But from what I've seen, I am happy with the fact that it looks more balanced now across the classes. I want to get in and start trying some random things, but I'm not sure it's enough to repair its initial launch, because like I said, there's going to be people that aren't going to go back to it because they have to play the campaign, so that's going to hurt some. Some people just were not going to go back because of how the campaign or how it launched to begin with. So if it does help, it's not going to help get them anywhere near, I don't think, where they were at the initial launch. Because it'd take a lot of work across, I think, several patches and content updates for them to get there. I mean, that's kind of like No Man's Sky. It took, years for No Man's Sky to get to the point that people are talking about it in a positive light, and actually they're gaining more and more players consistently. So I think it's probably going to be the same kind of path for Wolcen. They'll just have to keep adding new content, updating things, improving the game gradually, and just try to pick up an extra few people with each new update.
I agree there. As far as the balance changes go, you're right. A lot of the streams that I've seen, it's a lot of different builds out there. And I'm running a turret build, and I'm having fun with that. And I'm trying to incorporate other projectile skills and make it this overall caster / ranger projectile build. And I'm having a lot of fun with it so far during the campaign. It's working out well. I don't know how it's going to proceed during endgame, But I do think that the balance is starting to come around in the game, which is one of the big issues that it had. The bugs can be fixed. These are things that can be fixed, but they have to be fixed quickly. The other thing is, I mean, I'm really liking the Bloodtrail content release. I'm enjoying the hunt that's added. I haven't gotten to the new, extra parts of the storyline that came with it. I haven't gotten that far yet. But I'm liking the hunt portion of leveling, and that goes into the end game system as well. And I'm liking my build, but I just don't know if they can be waiting 6, 8 months, a year before putting out their next chronicle. Like, this is something that should be happening more frequently because the game still needs a lot. And to touch on your, 187 has already been done, which is the top in the end game.
Expedition, yeah.
The top expedition. Most likely that's already been done on the new Bloodtrail content, because that was one of the initial problems the game also had, is its end game system didn't slow people down from getting to that final point. Diablo 3, we both play that, and yes, people within a week, they get to Greater Rift 150. But that's after years of, pushing patches and buffing up classes so that they can get to that point. That's not 3 days after the game launched. Somebody had done it then.
And it's also not many people that are that far along. It's people that have been playing usually as a group together for a long time as well and know the game really well, so that they can do those rapid group farms to get all the gems and augments. I mean, it's a very small subset of the actual D3 community that are doing it that quickly. But yeah, like Wolcen, the fact that, you can get there
solo
rapidly solo. Well, and that's another thing that I think is a big issue that they really need to fix with Wolcen that they haven't yet to get people back in, is you have to play the campaign solo. You can play it in a group, but the quests only count for the group leader, whoever's hosting. So if you're not the host...
To the best of my knowledge, it counts for everybody, except the lowest person, the person who's earliest in the campaign, has to be the one that creates the party. Because they're...
I just know I was watching a stream earlier today, and someone was having to go back through and redo quest in Act 2 that they had completed last night playing with someone else.
Oh, that's not cool if that's the case.
Yeah, and so I think that's still a thing, and if that's a thing, that's going to frustrate a lot of people that want to play as a group to try and speed through the campaign even faster. So that's also something that they may, like, if that is what's going on, they really need to just make it so that it's group compatible and everybody gets credit for the quests that they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, that sucks if that's the case and you can't progress through the campaign equally as a group.
Yeah.
I was under the impression that you were able to do so as long as the person who's earliest in the campaign, or at least along in the campaign, created the group, then everybody would get credit.
Now, the good thing is that's something that we can test, Wolf. Like, later we can just make new characters and we can just start the campaign at the beginning together as a group and see if both of us get credit for all the quests we do through it. And if so, no big problem there. Just make sure that you're grouping.
Right from the
you have a group character for the campaign, and you're grouping from the get-go, and y'all just like blitz the campaign content.
Now the campaign is good. I still really loved the campaign of Wolcen. I thought it was very well done. The cinematics, they're not Blizzard quality. They're not going to, win any awards. but they were definitely competent. The voice acting was nice. It went with it. The graphics, it all flowed really well. And I thought that the storyline as a whole was pretty well done. It's got more of a generic story, but at the same time, it wasn't overly done. And it definitely, everything meshed well. And it wasn't boring. Second or third time around, that's when I start to find campaigns boring because you know what's coming and that sort of thing. But if you're out there and you're on the fence and you haven't played the campaign for Wolcen, it's a good, depending on how fast you go, 1.5 to 5 hours worth of campaign, depending on your speed. If you're a speed runner, you could probably get it done in 1.5 to 2 hours. If you like to take your time and enjoy the game, it'll probably take about 5 hours. And it's a nice story. It flows well. So I think overall I like it, but I just don't feel like doing the campaign again. And it's rough because I want to get to the end game, test out builds and that sort of thing.
Especially since the end game is where the new content is, with the exception of, you can do the hunts during the campaign, but like the good new stuff is at the end. So everyone wants to get there and see what the new stuff is. So
Plus
putting that like time gate on it is like, yeah.
But at the same time, I feel it had to be done. You had duping early on. The amount of stuff that went wrong with the launch is just crazy. You had people with billions and trillions of gold and the ability to buy everything and upgrade every skill. And, it was just crazy. And they had to reset the economy. So I totally understand it. It's just that I wish there was a way for them to realize that, okay, you have a legacy character that went through the campaign. You don't have to go through the campaign again, except for the new portions of the campaign. I wish that they had done something like that rather than, everybody has to do the whole campaign over again. I get it. You're proud of the campaign, but we've been there, done that, and give people that option to utilize the end game. The only drawback is the end game is also very limited still. You've got the hunts, which make things cooler, but with the addition of the bugs that may have created, I don't know if it's enough to hold people's interest for very long.
Yeah, I think they'll pick up a few extra people that will continue with the game and keep going, mainly just because of the increased diversity of builds that are viable and the new in-game content and the reset economy. So I do think they'll pick up more people that'll play the game, but it's not going to be what saves the game. Like I say, that's going to be a more long-term, continuous effort to get to that kind of a point.
Yeah, there needs to be more to do in the game. And I think that they can do it. I think this team, like I've said several times during this video alone, it's a beautiful game. It is absolutely beautiful. I personally, some people have a problem with the gameplay. I personally enjoy the gameplay. It runs smooth for me for the most part. Initially with the launch, yeah, that was a cluster. But when I play it nowadays, it runs fairly smooth. I enjoy the gameplay. I enjoy the graphics. And overall, I think it's a solid game. But I run into problems with pretty much all action role-playing games where I get sucked in for a little bit, and then I start to get a little bit bored, and I want to go do something else. Thankfully, I love action role-playing games, and I have a lot of these games at my disposal. I play Diablo 3. I'm still not done with this season in Diablo 3 because I'm having a blast with it. But I'm
for you to go back to Chaos Bane.
No. Never Chaos Bane, though. Chaos Bane, no. That's the only one I dislike, and that's because of their greed. But Wolcen this week has been fun to get back into. I love Path of Exile. I'm going to skip the Mayhem League.
Oh,
Personally, I am going to do the Endless Delve League, but I've got too much on my plate right now. I do want to play some D3. I want to check out Wolcen. I've been having a blast on the Rogue in Last Epoch, which we're going to jump over to right now. Last Epoch has released the Rogue class, their 5th class in the game. This is a game that I have loved since its concept. I backed this game on Kickstarter myself personally after, watching some videos and reading up about it. I love the concept behind it. This whole time traveling thing where you can go to the same place within the game during several portions of that world's history and all the changes that have happened and everything that's going on in the game. And I gotta say that, I jump into Last Epoch pretty much once every 2 to 3 months. And I'll jump in and I'll play till the end game and I'll do a little bit of the end game and I'll bounce out just so that I can see all of the new stuff. And I'm glad this time around I waited and actually skipped last patch because now I'm playing the Rogue and I'm seeing all the changes graphically that they are making to this game. And I was worried about this part of the game, the graphics and the fact that a lot of places looked very barren or bland. And now the game is starting to take shape. And the Rogue class is very fun to play so far. I think I'm only like level 24, 25. But I'm having a blast playing it. I'm having fun. I'm enjoying all of this new content, these new visuals that are added to the game, and overall, I'm really digging Last Epoch. I started playing it today, and I can't wait to jump back into it and see more of what's been added over the last couple of patches because I stand behind this game. I think it's going to be something. And now they are starting to allay my fears when it comes to this game because graphically, I think it needed a big touch up. And it seems that they've been doing that. And the Rogue's wicked fun. I think the biggest thing they need to add is multiplayer. And most likely that's going to be the next big patch. Have you had a chance to jump into Last Epoch yet?
not with this patch. I'm not entirely sure that I'm going to jump in on this one. I am glad that the Rogue is in now, but what I'm really waiting for in Last Epoch is, I believe it's the Rune Master specialization or whatever for the Wizard class or Sorcerer or whatever it is that it's called. Because I'm really interested in seeing how the like runes and everything work for that one. Uh, I might make it in there, but like right now, I am Dauntless PoE with all the different leagues. Uh, so so busy,
I
and
hear
of course
that.
still doing a little bit of D3. And like I said, we need to test out that Wolcen issue for leveling. So yeah, there's just so much going on right now. I'm not entirely sure when I'll make it into Last Epoch, but it is also a game that I think is a really great game. Uh, it's one that I'm keeping my eye on, and we'll see where it goes when it finally launches. But I definitely think it's going to have a good, solid launch when it does, because that team has been consistently putting work into it, consistently adding more updates, and more importantly, they communicate with the community. I think that was probably one of the biggest things where like the Wolcen dev team started making a lot of people concerned by not talking about what they were doing. Where Last Epoch, like that dev team really keeps you informed.
They
So
not only keep you informed, but they're like in people's streams. They're talking
yeah,
to the community in the streamers' channels. Their Discord is wicked active. I think that they put a lot of effort into communication. And that's very good to see from a game company, especially an indie game company that's up and coming. Grand ideas are only going to get you so far. There's got to be, communication with your community, and there's got to be follow through on those ideas. And there has to be some type of, meshing of the two, because your community is what's going to help you make a great game. I think that's where Wolcen, on its launch, I think that's where it failed, is it didn't utilize the fact that the community wanted to make sure that they made a great game. And instead they wanted to, I understand it, they wanted to surprise their community with the gift of Wolcen. But it backfired because you didn't let that community test Wolcen for you. And there's no way you were going to test and find every bug, no matter how many people are working for the company, especially when it's a company of like 40 to 50 people. You weren't going to find all the bugs in the game. And as soon as it launched, boom, tons of bugs. Last Epoch is a little bit different because we all play it every now and then. We all give feedback on this site. We all ask questions, and I've been able to get answers on, why am I crashing at this point? Oh, it's this. It's being worked on now. So we know what's causing it. We're working on a patch for it, and it'll be fixed, and now it's fixed. You know what I mean? So there was a certain skill in the game. I think it was, I can't think of the name of it, the chain lightning one. But it was causing me to crash when I got to certain points, and I used it on certain, in certain areas or in certain succession, and I would crash the game out. But they were able to pinpoint it because of the community, and they were able to fix it because of, their communication. And I think that's where hopefully Last Epoch is going to be successful, is the fact that they do talk to their community. They do implement changes based on feedback, and they do try to fix problems as they're brought up in their Discord. Their community manager, Sarno, is ridiculously active in the Discord. But not only him, the developers themselves, and it's really awesome to see. And I'm so glad that I helped them out on Kickstarter, because I do think it's going to be a game that I'm going to really enjoy playing in the future. I mean, it's concept, it's passive trees for each skill. The whole thing to me just is very fun to play. There's a lot of content in the game currently, and there's only going to be more, once they start fleshing this out. But now everything's starting to take shape, and I'm loving Last Epoch right now. I was playing it earlier today, I think for like 2.5 hours, and I lost track of time. I'm like, oh, I gotta go, because, and it's a while in between, that happening. And I really am glad that they were able to push these content patches out. And usually their patches are pretty big chunks, and then a bunch of little patches to fix those big chunks while they work on the next big chunk. And I'm hoping that multiplayer is the next one, because that's when I really want to test out this game with friends, see how the multiplayer works. Because let's face it, not a lot of action role-playing games handle multiplayer well. It's not. Diablo 3 is the best when it comes to multiplayer, but it does it at the expense of the solo player. Path of Exile is really good for solo player, but not so much for group play, unless, you've got a specific group that you all know exactly what you're doing. Other than that, it's good for messing around as a group, but it's just throwing people together and running maps or whatever you want to do. where Diablo 3, it's kind of necessary in order to get your high paragons and stuff. There's got to be an in-between where grouping in a game is not only fun, but beneficial for everybody, but not to the point where solo players suffer. I think so far, none of them have been able to pull that off. And I want to see what Last Epoch can do when it comes to that type of stuff. I hope it's the next patch. I'd like to be able to play Last Epoch with you, Draves, Voldy Mitsu, and see if we can really dig into how that multiplayer is going to be, because that's going to be the true test for me, because I enjoy playing with friends. Even in Path of Exile, I love playing solo, but I want the ability to play with my buddies. You know, I like that aspect too. So Path of Exile doesn't really do anything special when it comes to grouping, but I still enjoy grouping in there just because I like hanging out with people. Same with Diablo 3. It's more the opposite end of the spectrum, but the grouping has to matter. I don't really care for it in Wolcen. It's okay. In Wolcen, there's nothing special one way or the other when it comes to grouping. I think it's pretty cool just to do so, but there's no benefit one way or the other for Wolcen, and I just can't wait to see what Last Epoch does with it. Speaking of grouping, how's the grouping in Dauntless? Let's talk about that for now, because they also had a big patch release this week. So take it away, Aetrik.
Yeah, so grouping in Dauntless is pretty good. First of all, it's 6-member groups now, up from 4. And I know, like, I agree that AARPGs they have a rough time with grouping. Now, Dauntless, I mean, there's really not an option. You're grouping. If you go into their new hunting islands, they are persistent islands that there's going to be 6 players on that island. You can either form a group with your friends and go in together, or if you queue up to go to one of the islands by yourself, it's going to put you on an island that already has, say, 5 people or something on it. There's always going to be 6 people. But they do an interesting thing to prevent the fights from being too trivial if there's all 6 people there. What they do, or from being too hard if you're in a fight on the island by yourself, because everybody can run around and do whatever the hell they want. What they do is each monster there's like a combat area. So as you get close to it, once you get close enough, you're part of the engagement. And then for each person that's in the engagement, it adds like this 1 tier of difficulty to the monster. It increases their stats, so on and so forth, for each person. So it can go anywhere from 1 to 6, depending on how many people actually go to that particular fight. And what you see sometimes or what I've been noticing a lot on the islands, is you usually see like 2 groups of like 3 friends or something, and each of them are going and doing their own things. You can work on your bounties together with your friends. It also makes bounty farming a lot easier than it used to be, because instead of sitting in a queue for specific patrols or individual hunts like you used to, this is one of the things I think this particular update did that's best, is you go to the island and you can just sit there and keep farming different behemoths. As they go down, more will spawn, and when you're at the Hunt Island screen, it will show you what behemoths spawn on that island. And it also tell you the level of them, and it has like a star system with regards to difficulty of the behemoths now. I think it's up to a 5-star system. So you can see, and that's usually associated with like how many attack patterns or moves the monsters can have. It's not based on raw stats. So you can sort of pick which islands you need to go to. Like if you have a bounty where you need to kill 8 frost behemoths, you can go to an island that has a lot of frost behemoths. There's a couple of cold-based islands.
Nice.
Now, they're not all frost behemoths, but the behemoths you're going to see the most are frost. Same thing if you need to fight the Terra, the lightning, basically any of the elemental behemoths. If you need to do, say, a bounty where you just need to kill a lot of things, you can just go to like the level 1 island and just wreck a bunch of level 1s to get the bounty done, because they've changed the progression as well. So it's not just kill the monsters, harvest body parts, make new armor and weapons. You actually have like a passive tree that
nice.
It's a big passive tree too, called the Slayer's Path that you work up. And going up the middle is the main path, and you progress in that by getting weapon skill experience. Weapon skill experience you get by killing behemoths with different types of weapons. And your weapon skill line levels up. If the level of the monsters on the island are below the level of the weapon skill line you're using, that weapon skill line will not get experience for behemoth kills. You'll still be able to get weapon skill experience from the bounty turn-ins, but that's something interesting that's going to keep people from just farming like the low tier islands as well.
Nice.
Yeah, they're doing a good job of balancing it, and it's been a lot of fun. I know Voldy, Midnight, and I have gotten in here, and we've just gone waylaying things.
Nice. So when I played Dauntless with you and Voldy Mitsu, I kind of found it somewhat boring. I mean, we would just party up and then queue up for a fight, and then we go there and fight the behemoth and just rinse and repeat, and we'd, wait around town and then go fight another, and it was like that. But now you're saying it's like more or less just islands of monsters, pretty much?
Pretty much. And like one of the reasons that, like, I agree, like previous Dauntless was like boring AF to a point, just because of the amount of time you sat there waiting for the game to create the 4-player group for you. You sat on that waiting for it to find appropriate players for you to group forever. So there was a lot of just sitting and waiting. Now you can just grab your group of friends, queue up for an island. I've never waited more than like 15 to 30 seconds to get on an island.
But
once you're there, you guys can just keep killing stuff. Go ahead.
Do you think that that's just because the new content has come out, and then once the initial burst of players returning, that it'll go back to those waiting 5-10 minutes for a party to start? Or do you think that's something that's inherently been fixed overall with this patch?
I actually think that's something that's been fixed overall with this patch, because like right now they have to have more players than they have had before, because this is basically like a rework of the game.
Nice.
Is kind of what it is. And a lot of people were interested in it and are coming in to test it out. So even with the amount of players that we have right now, it's letting us in. And I think that if all the islands are full and I've got a group of 3 friends and we want to play on a specific island, but all the versions of that island are full, well, it'll make another one of those islands for it. And then it'll fill those other spots as people come in wanting to play on that island.
That was another question I had. So when you say you're grouping up with 3 or 4 friends, but the island takes 6, are there ever any times where the island itself doesn't have 6 players in it?
Yeah, because you don't have to stay like forever. You can join an island and leave an island whenever you want. But when you leave, it'll then queue up like the next person that's trying to get on that island. And then they'll join the island to take that spot if there's someone that's wanting to get on that island. So yeah, there'll be some time. Really early in the morning, I think this morning, I was on a few islands and I didn't see more than 2 or 3 other people. And this was when I was playing solo. Now, I don't know if that was because everyone was just running off doing their own thing or because we actually didn't have a full island. But you can not have all 6 people around.
And now the monster will, or the behemoth will correlate to how many people are there. So
yeah, at the behemoth. So
right.
Like if 3 of us are going off to fight one, and 3 people of the 6 go off to fight another, each of those 2 different behemoths will be geared for a 3-man party instead of 6 because there's 6 people on the island. Then there's also the events that occur. Like an event starts every 15 minutes. Then like it's shown on the compass of the island map where the event is, so you can start heading towards it once you see its icon. The icon also tells you what event it is for the island, so you can be like, okay, I don't want anything to do with that one. I'm gonna stay on the opposite side of the island.
Nice.
Because some of the higher difficulty islands have some really insane events. There's one of them that activates on higher tier islands called Sudden Death. That one, it basically supercharges the monsters in that little like combat area, and it makes it so that every monster that spawns for that event, all of their hits are fatal. Everything one shots.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
So if I see that one, like, no, I'm not going to that crap. I'm avoiding, because I'm not good at dodging in this game. I'll go ahead and I have no shame in saying, yeah, I'm not the dodger. But yeah, so the events are fun. They'll occur, and you usually fight 3 or more behemoths through the course of the event.
Now, did they add new behemoths, new monsters?
Yes, there are new monsters.
Did they add new basic monsters as well?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not just new variations of others. There are new, like, basic monsters to the game. They added a glider that you can use to, like, fly around, kind of, on the islands. Because the islands are, pretty big, so you can jump off a cliff and then use your glider to get some glide time and glide over some canyons and everything. It's a pretty big update, and it's pretty impressive.
Nice.
But it definitely accomplishes group play very well. But like I say, it's because the game is geared towards group and nothing else. Whereas, like, Diablo, out of the ARPGs, does do grouping the best, but grouping in Diablo irritates me a bit because, I mean, you know me, you've seen me play, I always end up with some weird off-the-meta shit, which doesn't do well in groups.
Not usually. Not once you get towards, higher GRs, you're going to need the supports. You're not going to do a 150 with 4 DPS. Not usually, anyways. It depends on the current seasonal theme in Diablo 3. But you're not usually going to see a 4 DPS, 140, 150 GR. It's just, it tapers off to the need for people to play those support builds. And not a lot of people want to play support. I know in our groups, in our clan, there's a handful of people that'll play support, and it's not everybody's cup of tea to be that 0 DPS monk or be that pull barb, or not everybody wants to run rats or anything like that. So I think Diablo itself still has ways to go in that party aspect, but it's good to see that Dauntless. I mean, yeah, when we played it, it was all about the party, the grouping, and hunting down the beast and trying to take it down, complete your quest, and all of that. And it definitely sounds like something I would be willing to revisit. So I will look into, updating that game as well, and trying to jump into some Dauntless with you guys, and maybe we can get a 6-player group going.
Yeah, if we had a 6-player group and basically owned our own islands, that would be pretty awesome.
That would be.
Then there'd be no judgment.
Nice. I'll still judge you. Don't worry about that.
Oh, it's okay. Like, you won't judge me as bad as Voldy does at HOTS, so we're good.
Nobody judges anybody as much as Voldy judges people at HOTS, but that's a story for another day. We'll have to bring in Mr. I got banned from talking to people in the game at some other point and discuss that.
But yeah, like, grouping is really good in the game because it's geared towards grouping. Like you said, PoE struggles with grouping. Diablo 3 does grouping a bit better, but it does struggle. PoE being geared, I think, more towards a solo game is probably why I last longer in PoE leagues than Diablo 3 seasons. Just because I do run weird off-meta builds, like Spectral Blade, Melee, Legacy of Nightmare Wizards. And when I get in groups with those, it ends up being a lot of times I'm just walking behind the insane dash everywhere monk or whatever it is. So it becomes a walking simulator, which, I mean, that's not really that fun. Where PoE, not really too great on grouping, but most people play that solo, so I end up running solo most of the time. And then Wolcen, we'll see how Wolcen balances out. The grouping in that seems about kind of the same. It's like, why are we grouping?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be a need for the group mechanic in there.
I think in Wolcen, it's good if you want to group and then, let people know what you're looking for as far as gear, but you can also do that solo and just let your clan know or your guild know that, this is what I need. So just keep it if you get it. I'll invite you to party and we'll trade.
Yeah, so hopefully Last Epoch will do well when they add the group part in, but that is a really hard tightrope to try and walk on what is good for group play versus what is good for solo, and trying to not screw one over the other.
Yep.
I mean, it's tough to do.
I gotta say that, I have faith in Last Epoch simply because it seems that lately, for action role-playing games, everything's hard for companies. How many failed ARPGs have come out this year or late last year? I mean, Pagan Online closed the online servers, so it's an offline game now because it failed. Warhammer Chaos Bane, what's its player base at? 75, 80 people playing on their peak hours. What do you got for Wolcen Lords of Mayhem before this patch. I mean, that was just a horrible release to what essentially could be a great game someday in the future. But it seems that action role-playing games overall struggle when it comes to, breaking into those. You're not going to be the next Grim Dawn, Path of Exile, or Diablo 3. I think Last Epoch is not only the best chance, but it might be the last hope for a fourth competitor in that arena. Yes, I know Torchlight Frontiers is there as well. That's not really a game that appeals to me, but I can see the draw. And overall, I mean, I haven't had the chance to play it. I'm not going to, badmouth the game. It just doesn't look like my cup of tea. It looks like the Fortnite of action role-playing games. Pagan Online also looked like the Fortnite of action role-playing games. Not really keen on that stylized version of action role-playing games. But that's me personally. That's an opinion. That's not making it a bad game. I think that it could be a great game. I do wish it success, because the more games that succeed in my favorite genre makes my favorite genre better. Action role-playing games, they need that competition. Diablo 3, Diablo 4, Path of Exile 2, Grim Dawn, Last Epoch, all of these being successful help push the genre.
Or keep the player base in your game lower.
What's that?
I said, or keep the player base in your specific game lower.
Yeah.
Just to be devil's advocate there.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely can. But I mean, it's something that has offered up a lot of failures. But you want those successful ones, because they end up driving that need to compete, which means when you need to compete, you need to innovate. When you innovate, it makes better games. When you're adding new systems, and, I thought Wolcen's endgame system was pretty decent for an action role-playing game, where you're like the ruler of that town. You're the ruler of Stormfall, and, different missions accomplish different things. It just needs a little bit more. It needs more, and it could get there, but it's a cool system. It's very innovative. It's one of the good things that Wolcen did bring about, and hopefully other companies can go, maybe I could try something entirely different and give people a different type of end game. You know what I mean? When it comes to these, because Diablo 3, you got Nephilim Rifts, Greater Rifts, and Bounties. Path of Exile is very good with its end game, very innovative with its leagues, but you've got the map system, Delve, and that sort of stuff, but it's all based off of the map system for the most part. It's either mapping or delving, or with the recent Heist League, it's mapping, delving, or heist, and you can incorporate the other things from previous leagues into those aspects of the game, but it's still only 3 real things that you were able to do. It's just that, it's got a stronger end game as far as bossing goes than any other. So I'd say that it's a lot more in depth, and they do innovate there. And I want to see that taken into Diablo 4. I want to see Blizzard get back to its roots of, really bringing about the direction of the genre. And I'm hoping that all of these things like Last Epoch, Wolcen, Path of Exile, and Path of Exile 2 can really drive that. This is my favorite genre. I love playing action role-playing games. And I just really hope to see more and more competition, because that's going to make things better, and I think it's going to make things better for every person who's playing any of those games. I don't want just Diablo 4 to be awesome. I want Path of Exile 2 to be awesome. I want Last Epoch to be awesome. I want Wolcen Lords of Mayhem to eventually succeed. I do think that they've put a lot of work into it, and I do think that, they are going in the right direction. It's not there yet. If you're not catching the game on sale, I would not buy it yet. But if you do catch it on sale, it's a pretty decent game. It's a good time killer. I think I've got like 80 hours played in the game currently. I'd have to double check those numbers, but I think somewhere around there. I know I've got about that in Last Epoch as well, and that's not bad for, just a beta game. I've got thousands of hours in both Path of Exile and Diablo 3. And those are my core games, but I like visiting the indie type stuff as well, and hopefully seeing some of those succeed. Path of Exile's Mayhem League. How is that so far? I don't plan on participating, but it sounds like, let's see, absolute mayhem. It sounds like it could get a little crazy up in there. I haven't seen any streams so far on it. I haven't had the chance. I haven't had that opportunity. But what are you thinking about the latest Path of Exile, that short 1 week Mayhem League?
Yeah, so far, it is a good thing I don't play hardcore. Like, I do not even see myself being able to get to maps if I did hardcore. It's pretty brutal at times. So walking into some rooms and there being like 5 or 6 nemesis bosses is a nightmare. Especially if they're all ones that give tons of ground AoE effects. It's like, okay, I just walk in the room and I'm going to die. Walking into a small room with 5 or 6 harbingers is kind of the same thing. There's tons of stuff to kill, but they do the whole ground fire effect and everything else, and depending on what mobs they're spawning, it can get really, really dicey. The Rogue Exiles are okay, because I look forward to the Rogue Exile zones just because I still don't have a tabby yet, and Rogue Exiles have a decent chance of dropping a tabby. So if you walk in, it's like, hey, 20 Rogue Exiles are in this zone. I got 20 chances for a tabby.
Nice.
That's not bad. The Breach one, the Breach is good just because I can skip it if I want to.
Now, you're still in the early leveling phase on that.
Oh, yeah. I'm not even done with the first Katava kill.
What level are you currently?
37, I think.
37? Roughly how many times do you think you've died so far?
12, 13?
37?
Yeah, let me see.
12 or 13 deaths already? That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it can get really, really stupid in some of them. And some of them you just really get screwed on. And I haven't done an Ascendancy yet. I could go do the first one, but I don't know how the lab works, and it makes me nervous, because does each new room of the lab count as a new zone? Because if it does, when you go to your Azaro fight room, you could be in there with Azaro and 20 Nemesis bosses.
I don't think it's going to affect Azaro's room itself, but I think it will affect. I think it can affect the rest of the Ascendancy. That'd be
I don't
crazy.
know how it works, but
that'd
yeah,
be crazy if you walk
scared.
into Azaro's room and there's 20 tormented souls that just fill him up and give him tons of buffs.
God, yeah,
that'd be nuts. No, there's no way that's happening. So that's not a thing.
I'm nervous. I was like, I don't know if that's how it works, so I haven't bothered. But yeah,
well, it hasn't worked like that in previous leagues. There haven't really been any spawns in Zaro's room, but sometimes they do overlap into the Ascendancy itself, into the trial.
The hardest
itself.
thing I've fought so far had, I believe, 6 tormented souls in it. That was stupid and terrible. It was in the prison. It was Sawbones. Sawbones ended up getting like 6 tormented souls in it. And I was like, well, this is rippy as.
Wow. I had that happen not in this Mayhem event, but I had I forgot what build I was playing, and it was a league or two ago, and I ended up getting a map that had extra tormented souls, and they all went into the boss at the end of it, and I'm like, what? Because all I did was keep going in that room and getting one shot. Like, I couldn't do anything because this boss was like jacked up on PCP and like hyped up on Red Bull, and he was just like instantly chasing me down, and it was crazy, and it ended up like killing me like 4 times, and I'm like, nah, I'm not finishing this map, because somehow they just turn him into like crazy mode.
Yeah, so here's a like thought exercise on this. Imagine going into the unique map that is just that one boss that chases you all over the place and pretty much nothing else, with the 20 tormented soul modifier on it.
But does it? I don't think it affects unique maps. Most of the time, league mechanics don't affect unique maps, so I don't think that's going to be a problem either. Just because normally they don't, maybe. But I don't see that happening. Usually that the unique maps are their own separated thing. It's not like you're going to run into the tormented spirits. I could be wrong. During, breachstones either. You're not going to find 10 breaches in a breachstone. So the odds are that unique maps and breachstones and Azzaro's room are all pretty safe when it comes to this. I don't see that being a thing, because that ultimately would be crazy. You would not want to go into a Grandmaster's, map that also had 20 tormented souls. You're already going to die most likely, and now you're going to bring in like extra power for all of those. That's not going to happen. The unique maps are pretty safe.
It's definitely insanity. I'm looking more forward to the Infinite Delve League.
I am too.
That's
Infinite Delve is going to be my thing. I love delving, and now you've got a chance to, solo self-found delve, and only delve. You can get your skills, but that's it. You can fossil craft. There's no crafting bench, and it just seems like it's going to be a fun time to just delve. I don't know what build I'm going to go with yet.
Have you seen the starting uniques?
I haven't yet. I haven't taken a look at them. Like I saw the post, but I haven't gone through and seeing how it works.
A lot of them are just ridiculous.
Ridiculous. Overpowered or underpowered?
They're gonna make the beginning part stupid easy.
Okay.
One of them's a dagger that gives a 100% crit chance. And a couple other modifiers to it. I think it's 100% crit chance, like 50% crit multi. It's pretty insane to be a starting weapon. The sword, I think, adds fire damage and increases AoE by a lot, and some other stuff. Most of them are insanely good. And then there's a couple that they're good, but because you're looking at them in comparison to the other, it's like, what is this crap? Like on any normal day, you'd be like, yeah, this is cool.
My thing is with it, it's going to be wicked interesting to see, how it's going to be to put a build together. Being solo self-found, you can't really hunt the uniques. The good thing is side areas and, side farming. You can find a lot of hidden treasures, and you can find some uniques, but finding those, hard to find uniques, you're going to struggle with. And
you're going to have to do something that's not going to be unique based, that can do well without the uniques. And if you have something that does well without requiring a lot of like crazy uniques, then I think it'll be easy with Delve, because you can just plot your path towards, okay, I still need a weapon that I don't have. So you start hitting up as many of the weapon nodes as you can going down. So I think farming will be useful and beneficial in the Infinite Delve. I think it'll help people put builds together a lot quicker than we might think.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what type of builds take over the top of each ascendancy. I like that part where it's each ascendancy is its own ladder for the most part, and lots of things up for grabs as far as rewards. I love the way Path of Exile does that type of stuff and rewards its players with, trying to get them involved with these short events or when they do their races and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I love Delve.
Yeah.
It was my favorite all-time addition to the game.
Yeah, I agree.
And the fact that you're not going to need to go farm sulfite is going to be pretty amazing. You don't have to worry about using the azurite that you find in the delve to up your sulfite capacity. You can focus on that darkness resistance. You can focus on flares. You can focus on that type of stuff with it because you don't have to farm sulfite. I don't know if they're going to change the amount that you need for those resistances. Hopefully not. But you can just go down to, level, just keep going down till you get to level 170, side level until you get to the level you want to go, and then start digging down to the point where, you go as deep as you possibly can. Now, there's going to be builds out there that are just easily going to be able to pass by all of everybody, but that's where it's cool when it goes by ascendancy, because now, you stand a chance because you're up against other elementalists or occultists. You're not going against the, other players that can go deeper, or, you're a pathfinder. And even though you normally can't go as deep, neither can anybody else. So it's all going to come down to build type, survivability, which once you get deep anyways, there is no survivability. So it's either you don't get hit or you die. I mean, that's delving at a deep level. So it's going to be interesting to see how far each ascendancy gets during the Endless Delve event. And I am so looking forward to that one. That is one that I cannot pass up. It's my favorite thing in Path of Exile. I plan on playing Diablo 3 still, but I will be taking that week off of Diablo 3 because I will be playing Infinite Delve. It just sounds like an awesome concept, and like I said, my favorite thing to do in the game. So we're going to be hitting up the Delve pretty hard and seeing what type of build we can make. And I haven't figured out what I want to do yet as far as the Ascendancy, but I want to push as far as I can go. I do really good at getting to about Delve 3 to 400. And usually that's when I fall off and I don't push anymore. But being in Delve to begin with, maybe I can get a little bit deeper. Maybe I can see if I can break that 500 barrier this time around. That'd be pretty cool to see. I'd like to, see how far I can get in a week's time. Do you know what you might be playing or not yet? Are you still trying to work out?
100% already know what I'm playing.
Nice. See, I'll also let my gear decide for me. Like, I'll pick the Ascendancy that I want to go, but then I'll start to let my gear decide, oh, maybe this will be better. Because I think I have an idea for the class that I want. But we'll have to wait and see on that and see how that goes. But I'm definitely looking forward to Endless Delve. I'm having a blast in Last Epoch. I want to get to the end game of Wolcen, Lords of Mayhem, and see how that flows with the new Bloodtrail chronicle. I want to check out Dauntless. And like I said, I'm going to skip the Mayhem event just because I've got too much on my plate. I do want to play a little bit of Diablo 3 as well. But I think the next couple of days are probably going to focus on Last Epoch and Wolcen, Lords of Mayhem. and then, sprinkle in some Dauntless as a group. But I'll only play that with you guys as a group. That's not something I can see myself playing solo. But that's what I'm going to be up to over the next couple of weeks. It's going to be a fun time.
I'm probably going to be doing Dauntless and the PoE leagues for the most part. I'll sprinkle in Wolcen and probably Last Epoch. I'll try to get on D3 every now and then, but with so much going on right now, it might be harder to pull me back into D3.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of content out right now, and it's going to be hard to stay focused on one for me. I'm going to be all over the place.
But I definitely, I'm going to start with Cast on Crit Assassin, but I might decide to scrap that tomorrow and go with an Ascendant or the lady. What is that class? Aspirant. What is she? The one that's like everybody's Ascendancy.
Oh, Scion.
Scion, yeah. I'm thinking go with Scion just because if I play a Scion, I think that guarantees I get one of the sword things because nobody's going to be playing a Scion for this crap.
Nice. You never know. You never know.
I don't see Scion being picked for Endless Delve at all. Maybe, but
I'd have to check out the builds for Delve builds, but if you're going with a Delve build, it's going to be that much harder to actually compete if you go with the solid, tried and true Delve builds that are out there, because there's only a handful that can get really low. So I think you're making it harder for yourself if you go those classes, but then again, you're making it harder for yourself if you don't go those classes. So it's pick your poison for the most part. Either you're going to be against a bunch of people, or you're going to be struggling when it gets to those lower depths. But we'll have to wait and see how that goes. Overall, I think it's a very awesome week. Lots of good stuff out there. Hopefully you guys are checking that stuff out. We are going to end things here, ladies and gentlemen, with this discussion. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this vodcast, and I want to say thank you so very much. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Let us know in that comment section down below what you thought of this video, and thank you all so very much, and you all have a fantastic day. Peace.